I take my hat off to you to be able to kind of stick with it like you did, and just, you know, keep your vision and go, do you know what? Just let it all, you have to be thick skinned and you have to let it wash over you somehow without it affecting you. So, you know, it's impressive what you guys did.
Don't for a minute, but don't for a minute think that it didn't take its toll. That's the point. What I'm saying to you about the value of what these records mean to me. Sometimes I say to myself, oh man, the price I paid. Look, I went through two marriages that fell apart. I had health issues. We fired band members. We were rejected. The band was sued. Me and Dee had to file for bankruptcy in a lawsuit. We lost everything. I lost everything twice. I had to come back twice. I couldn't have written the script as a 10-year-old.
So what made you keep at it though? That's what I don't get. I guess, is it kind of like you feel like it defines you in a way? You want it so much and it's been this dream of yours for so long that to not pursue that, you kind of don't know who you are. In a way, you would lose who you think you are, or it's just why does something like that, when it's so hard, why do you keep at it?
Well, okay. First of all, the nature of the band's success shifted into licensing music. So our music is now, we're not going to take in I Want to Rock the most licensed songs in the history of heavy metal.
I read that. Yeah, I did. I read it.
But they are. They're more than any band. Than AC/DC, Kiss. And by the way, I'm not saying, all my respect to all these bands and what they've done. They've certainly sold more records than us. But we are the most licensed band in the history of heavy metal. And we changed our focus years ago. And we make it our mission now to make sure that our music continues on. So, for example, this year, the Discover card, the credit card, we're the official song on the Discover card. So it's on TV every 5 fucking seconds. You hear we're not going to take it. And T-Mobile, we're not going to take it. And 2 years ago, Facebook, biggest Super Bowl ad, I Want to Rock. This is what we do.
They're great anthems. They're incredible anthems.
Yes. And you know what? There's a lot of great anthems. Kisses, I Want to Rock and Roll All Night. And, at Priest, You Got Another Thing Coming. Yeah. And, and Aerosmith, Dream On. I mean, we're talking like, whoa, like, AC/DC. Or who doesn't have a great fucking anthem? Who isn't like my favorite band on the planet Earth? AC/DC, Judas Priest. I mean, they are my favorite bands. They've got anthems, but they didn't promote them the way we did. And so it's a whole different world. I'm famous for saying this, if you may have read it. I'm saying if you look at the class of 1973 and the bands that came out of 73, Twisted Sister, Judas Priest, Aerosmith, Kiss, and AC/DC, that's a fucking pretty damn great list of bands.
Yeah.
And you take these 5 bands, without a doubt, they've all sold more records than us, without a doubt. But you ask a 10-year-old kid around the world to sing an Aerosmith song, a Judas Priest song, an AC/DC song, or a Kiss song, and the kid will not know it. But you ask them to sing We're Not Going to Take It, and the kid will sing We're Not Going to Take It. That's all I have to say. It's enough said. So,
I mean, the music videos are iconic as well. That was, what was his name? The director, Marty Kullner.
Marty Kullner. Yeah. But Dee also was the one that came up with the idea for that, So it was a combination of things. I mean, Dee and I have been going back and forth the last couple of days on some issues. And when I say issues, I don't mean contentious issues. I mean, we're talking about the sacrifices we all made to we talk periodically to remind ourselves how much bullshit we had to go up with, because at the end of the day, we could do conversations with you and Dee can do his shit, but then when we're talking, it's like a whole other level.
No, well, because you were there together.
Internally and affected each other both negatively. And look, no band that's been together this long does not have a lot of problems.
No.
Kiss, a lot of problems. Aerosmith, a lot of problems. Judas Priest, a lot. I mean, we all know this. This is not a secret.
No.
But we've lasted because we've somehow managed to make the answer to those problems more successful than the detriment to those problems. Yeah. So we've been able to do it. But to your point of why, that's no one has ever fucking asked me that question. You know that?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I'm not okay. Did you ask this question to other bands? I don't want to know these other answers, but do you ask this question routinely to musicians when you?
My interviews are more of a conversation. So it's
Okay.
just, we'll just see where it goes. I've got questions that I write, but then 9 times out of 10, I just skirt around it. We see where it goes. It's like a wild beast.
Okay. So I don't know what my inner drive is that allows me to continue pushing through all the crap. I don't know. I'm not a religious person, not spiritual. I make a joke that I say to my mom, who's been dead for years, Mom, I promise I was going to be a rock star. You know, I don't fucking, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. It's a self-preservation part of my life that stopped me from doing drugs when I was doing drugs. You know, the same shit that stopped me. Like I went, oh, that was enough. You know, I put a brake on because I knew it was going to kill me if I continued on. And I don't know, when people say to me, how do you do that? How'd you go from being like a drug addict to stopping in one day? Which I did. Wow. That's true. I just did.
What drugs was it?
It was everything. It was heroin, cocaine. It was heroin. It was LSD. It was pot hash, mescaline, psilocybin, THC, MDA. It was all that shit. I was just dealing it and taking it, and I OD'd on heroin, and I took acid 250 times. Yeah. I mean, and dealing it and smuggling it in countries.
Wow, you were lucky. You were lucky.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, I'm lucky. Talked my way out of 2 drug busts. Talked my way out of 2 drug busts, which could have affected my life horribly with a record. I have no record. I can tell the stories. I can laugh about it. All this shit happened 50 years ago. When I talk about it, I'm talking in the third person. Like that's that guy.
That's another life.
That is that person. Real. I mean, even Samantha, my daughter, you know, said to me, "You're the most boring human being on the planet Earth. You know, I'm your dad." And I said, "Yeah, you didn't know me when I was that." Mm-hmm. I said, "But that was crazy." And that was, look, I had a crazy life. I don't, you know, I've told this story a lot. It's in the book, Twisted Business. But I was almost murdered or could have died 6 times. Probably. And I don't know why I wasn't. I could have just as easily been. Okay. So you could say, well, that was God looking after you. And I said, well, God's got more shit to do than looking after this one drug addict hippie who's a Jew, who's an atheist Jew. I don't think he really gives a shit about an atheist Jew from Manhattan. I don't really care. So I don't know the answer. I was driven by a lust and a love of rock music, driven by it. And I would say that the Beatles were my Saturn V rocket that took me up, and then Bowie was my retro rocket that took me to the next level. Because when Bowie hit in '72 with Lou Reed and Martha Hoople, that was the next stage. You know, so the Beatles took me up to this, and then Bowie took me to the next level.
He really had. So was there a deep love of the guitar? Like, were you know, some guitarists, like, you know, you say don't leave the bedroom for 8 hours and stuff like that. Were you that type of guitarist that just like consuming?
Consumed. When the fuse was lit with a guitar player named Mike Bloomfield in a band called
I know Mike.
Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And when the fuse was lit on that album, on the Paul Butterfield Blues album, the debut album, that absolutely blew my mind. Look, I was a Beatle fan, but I never cared about playing their music, and I never cared about buying guitars that the Beatles played. It just wasn't. I don't know why. I just wasn't. But when I saw Mike Bloomfield's picture on the back cover, holding a Fender Telecaster and playing a guitar solo that he played on a song called Blues of the Feeling, I lost my mind. And then I heard Blues Breakers with Eric Clapton and lost my mind. And then I heard Albert King's Born Under a Bad Sign and a song called Crosscut Saw and lost my mind. And I got sick around the time I bought the Telecaster. I was 15. At 16, I got really sick and was in bed for about 5-6 weeks from school. I had mononucleosis, and I had this Fender Telecaster. And my father said to me, "What do you want?" I said, "Buy me these records." I told him which records to buy me, you know, and he brought me these albums. And for the 6 weeks I was at home, I slept with that guitar. I absolutely slept with it. And I played it all day long. I wasn't doing schoolwork, so it didn't matter. Yeah. And I played every day, hours and hours and hours and hours. And it's a true story. And when I came out of my sick bed 6 weeks later, I was a guitar player.
I love that story. That's like Joni Mitchell was the same. She got sick and then just consumed the guitar while she was sick in bed. She couldn't leave bed. And then same. There we go.
Interesting.
So again, another silver lining, like something positive that came out of something negative. So what did you say? You had myocarditis?
No, I had atrial fibrillation.
Okay.
Ultimately, I had AFib. I had operations to cure my atrial fibrillation. But I was sick with mononucleosis in school.
Right.
And so when I came out of my sick bed, I was already hanging out at this place called the Fountain in Central Park, which is this place where all the hippies went. So we all went there to deal drugs, take drugs, whatever. And a lot of the musicians, there was a lot of them, would bring their guitars down.
Right.
And we would just sit around the park in the summer, and everybody would know something. Like, oh, he knows the solo to Strange Brew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He knows
it was your YouTube lessons.
Yeah. It's exactly what it was. We didn't have YouTube. Yeah. It's exactly right. Oh, because in those days you had to put the record on, and then you had to play it, and you had to take the needle off, and you had to play it, and you had to take the needle off, and then when you wore the record down, you took a nickel and you taped it to the top of the arm, which maybe in England it was a halfpenny or whatever, you know what I mean, whatever it was back then, 10p, whatever, what a 5p,
half penny or something,
half penny, and you taped it because you wore the record out. You destroyed the needle, you destroyed the record player, you destroyed the record, and because you had to play it over and over and over. And you go, what was that? Oh fuck! Oh, and over, and you had to put it off and take it off and then try, and then I got to put it back on again. And now you sit down to now. It's just you push a button. You got a guitar. You got a guy who plays everything perfectly, and you just go do that. And
it's so much easier. I always say this: you guys from that era really had to want it to do it. You had to really want it. It's so much easier today to do it.
So much easier. You had to really dig into it to find it. Yeah. And you know what? That's a good point, Kylie, because what that did was it separated the people who didn't really want it from the people who really wanted it.
Yeah.
Like quickly. Yeah. Like quickly you said, oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
I don't have time
you would, wouldn't you? Yeah.
That shit, I'm not doing that. Okay. But if I want that, I got to do that. So there was another thing. You could go to the Fillmore East every weekend and see every rock god you ever wanted to see. Because there was only a 20-minute train ride from my house.
Oh, you're so lucky.
And then you come home at 4:00 in the morning and you put the guitar on in front of a mirror and you go, today I'm Jimi Hendrix. Today I'm Dwayne Allman. Today I'm Pete Townsend. Today I'm Jeff Beck. Today I'm Jimmy Page. Because I saw them all at the Fillmore. Today I'm Alvin.
I hate you so much. I can't believe it. Yeah. Who was the one that had the most profound effect on you then? If you're seeing all these are like the Mount Rushmore of guitar.
The best of the best. The best of the best. Well, here's the answer to that question. On any given week, the one I saw last was the one that had the most effect on me. Okay. So in other words,
they were great.
Okay, Jimi Hendrix was known for being terrible and being great, depending on what night you saw him. Right. So the first night I saw him, he was terrible. And he walked off stage and started a riot at Madison Square Garden. He was fucked up. His producer, Eddie Kramer, was our producer. So Eddie told me that my memory was correct. Jimmy was on acid. He was on a stage in the middle of the Madison Square Garden that rotated around. No PA system, no fallback system, no nothing. He comes out, at the height of his career, and he goes, people stop with the flash bulbs, because if you're on acid and you're rotating around on a stage and you're seeing flash bulbs, I'm assuming you can't understand what you're doing. It fucks with your head, right? So he walks off after 6 songs. Like, he just walked off and there was a riot. I was very disappointing because I love Jimmy. But a year and a half later, he does the Fillmore Band of Gypsies, 10th row center, bingo. I'm standing there and I'm standing there watching him. And I'm saying, by the way, at this point,
you saw Machine Gun. You saw Machine Gun live. I hate you.
Yes, I did. So at this point, I've seen Beck 3 times. 10 years after, 3 times. Zeppelin is an opening band. Saw them open for Iron Butterfly, and I've seen them all. And Jimmy. So this was New Year's Eve, 69, 70. So Zeppelin had already come through. In May, I saw Zeppelin twice. I saw Zeppelin in February of '69 and in May of '69, and so I saw him play the entire first album front row in May of '69, and then when was it? In January 28th, 1969, I saw them play the whole first album, and I saw them play the whole second album in May of '69, right? Front row. Right? So you could hate me more.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm watching Jimi Hendrix. I'm 10th row, and I'm like right there, and I'm looking at him. I'm just staring. I'm like right in front of him, and I'm going, John, just fucking remember what you're watching. Just really pay attention to what you're watching. You're watching a god here, you know. Up until then, the gods, well, I mean, I saw Beck's first concert with Rod Stewart in New York when Rod wouldn't come out from behind the PA, and Beck had to kick him in the ass, and because Rod was singing from behind the PA system, and he was too scared to come out. And all of a sudden you hear, Jailhouse Rock, and there's no singer on stage, and all of a sudden Rod comes flying out, and it turns out Jeff Beck went there and kicked him in the ass and made him stumble across the stage.
Please don't tell me they did Rock My Plimp Soul.
Oh, of course they did.
Oh, you.
Of course they did.
Go on.
Spanish Boots, Rice Pudding. You hate me even more, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Yeah. Wait.
Band of Gypsies, though. You saw them. I mean, that was the last. That was Band of Gypsies was kind of like, it kills me because I think to myself, he was going in such an incredible, like sonically, such an incredible direction with that band. Like,
Yeah, but I have more of a statement to make than that. So I can tell you what that is. So Eddie Kramer and I, because we're friends, we talk about this all the time. Because Eddie's, we kid each other all. We talk a lot, and
he's worked with a lot of them, isn't he? Like Zeppelin,
Rolling Stones, Beatles, Led Zeppelin, and and Jimmy, and he's Jimmy's guy. I mean, he does everything the Jimi Hendrix estate does. He does it all, right? So we talk a lot, and he was on my radio. He was on my podcast last year, and I was talking to him about the Fillmore shows. And how you had to mix the Fillmore shows, because when you're recording the Fillmore shows, you weren't mixing from upstairs; you were mixing under the stage, so you couldn't even see the artist. You were mixing under the stage, and the raps are running all over the place, and you're on with these tape consoles down there. Anyway, so I said this was the question. I was having some sort of philosophical argument with another band member on who's more important: Ginger Baker to Cream or Mitch Mitchell to the Jimi Hendrix Experience. This is this conversation I was having with.
Right.
I think Alice Cooper's manager one day or something. We're having this conversation, right? And he's talking about Ginger Baker. And I said, bullshit. I said, Eric could have been, and Cream could have existed without Jimmy. But the Experience could not have existed without Mitch Mitchell, because Mitch Mitchell's drumming gave Jimmy the flexibility to experiment. And that's why he went back to Mitch Mitchell at the end. Okay, because he got rid of Buddy Miles. All right. So when I saw Band of Gypsies, this was my response that night. I'm watching the show. I'm watching Jimmy lose his mind, and I'm watching Buddy playing basically R&B drums, no jazz at all, just like straightforward, holding Hendrix to this position.
Yeah,
and doing great in this position, but he wasn't free flowing, in my opinion. He wasn't as free flowing as he could be. So at the end of the night, when he came out for the encore, he did Wild Thing, and he hadn't rehearsed it with Billy Cox, who was his buddy. And I'm 10th row, and I'm seeing Jimmy yelling at Buddy, C, F, G. He's yelling at him. We're talking the three most fundamental chords in all the fucking music. Why is he having to yell to Billy Cox, C, F, G? So they never rehearsed it. He knew instinctively that the music he did for that album wasn't going to go over as well as he wanted it to go. So when he came out for the encore, he did Foxy Lady, Purple Haze, Wind Cries Mary, and Wild. Okay? And he did it to make a statement. Now, maybe he was pissed. Maybe he was unhappy that the music went over. But let me just tell you, he got rid of Buddy Miles shortly thereafter that. Okay?
Okay, there we go.
So when I called Eddie Kramer and I said, Eddie, your opinion, Ginger Baker to this, Mitch really goes, there's no question. Mitch was everything Jimmy ever needed in a drummer, because Mitch gave Jimmy the air to do what he did. So I'm sorry, but there's my considered Yoda-esque opinion.
No.
Okay, I haven't been older than Yoda.
I really like that theory, and I think being a musician, that's how you can analyze it that way. It's really, really interesting to think that with the drummers, and it just kind of goes to show how important every member of the band is and how each member makes up that soup, which makes it what it is. It's the right ingredients, isn't it?
It's true, but I would say, I will posit this to you. Yeah. If you look at the 5 biggest bands in the world, which to me, the Mount Rushmore, Beatles, Stones, Who, Zeppelin, Floyd, that's my Mount Rushmore. And Queen is probably right there, right there, because I've learned to love Queen so much, and they're probably right there. Okay. But Beatles, Stones, Who, Zeppelin, Floyd, amazing, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the Beatles would not be Beatles without Ringo.
Yeah.
Stones would not be Stones without Charlie.
Yeah.
The Who would not be The Who without Keith, and Zeppelin would not be Zeppelin without Bonham. This we fucking know.
Yeah, we do.
Anybody could have been the drummer for fucking Pink Floyd. I'm sorry. Any good quality drummer could have been the drummer to Pink Floyd.
I can't comment on that because I know Nick Mason's daughter. So
wait a minute. I am not saying that Nick Mason is not a great drummer.
Okay.
Under any circumstances. What I'm saying is that the uniqueness of those 4 guys is indisputable to the sound of their band. Yes. The uniqueness of Floyd was not based upon the rhythm section. That's the point I'm making.
Right, got you.
Okay? It doesn't mean, of course they need a great drummer, because bands need great drummers. Yeah. But you don't necessarily sit there with Pink Floyd and think about drumming. I could go see The Who and just watch Keith Moon. I could go see Zeppelin and just watch John Bonham. I could go see the Beatles and just see Ringo, because I think Ringo is the best fucking musician in the band. The only reason why they swung because of Ringo. And Keith, let me just tell you about the Stones. They're so bad that listening to Ron Wood and Keith Richards play guitar is like driving in a tour bus driven by Jose Feliciano and Ray Charles with a GPS. It's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, but that's what makes it great, though, as well.
They were great when they were great.
Yeah,
you have to understand. I've seen the Stones when they were great.
I know, you've seen them all.
I've seen them all at their peak when they were the best band in the world.
Yeah.
What they're selling now, the bullshit they sell now, is I'd see a cover band before I'd see that piece of shit, and that's my own opinion. You all want to go breathe the in the arena that those guys breathe because you want to tell people that you saw. You want to spend $800 to see Keith's face in high def. That is your fucking business, not mine. I, however, having seen all 3 shows at the Garden in 1969, including the matinee Thanksgiving show, which the anniversary of which is this Thursday, of which there was a riot at the Garden. You can't find a better rock and roll band than that band that year. All right. And maybe you could argue and say Exile was better. And there's some people will say that the Exile tour, and I saw the Exile tour too. Okay, hate me even more. I saw the Exile tour, and it was unbelievable. But that version of the Rolling Stones, that was one of the greatest bands in the fucking world. Not what they're selling these days. And by the way,
they're a traveling museum now, in a way, aren't they? It's kind of like you say, it's just a tick a box if you go and see them.
Yeah, but what's the excuse for that? So McCartney doesn't fuck around. You want to pay a lot of money to McCartney? He puts on a great goddamn show. That's truly great, not a bullshit show. You know, you may hate the Eagles, and it may take 55 guys on stage to be great, but if you're spending that much money to see the Eagles, you're seeing, You get Fleetwood Mac. Last time I saw Fleetwood Mac, they were impeccable.
Yeah, they were.
They were phenomenal.
What's wrong with the Stones then?
Phenomenal.
So what's wrong with the Stones?
Phenomenal.
What is it you don't like about the Stones? As in, what is it? Is it you think that Keith and Ronnie aren't playing well, or is when you say that show, what do you mean?
Well, the truth is, first of all, my guitar playing is based on Keith Richards' guitar playing, which is an interpretation of Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
So even though I say Mike Bloomfield, I had to learn that song. The first riff I ever learned was Down the Road a Piece, which was Keith's riff that he took from Chuck Berry for the Rolling Stones' Down the Road a Piece. That's the first riff I ever learned. And if you listen to my guitar solos, they're all based off of that riff. That's Keith Richards' riff. Okay. So let me give Keith all that credit.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, his book was phenomenal. Absolutely spectacular. Love the book. Never met the guy. And I think his journey in rock and roll is unbelievable. He's the template for everything that we all hope to be. When I go see the Stones, and I go, why, you guys can't play anymore. You have arthritis.
I know.
And because you have arthritis, those songs all have to be in open tuning because you can't even fold your fingers. And so because of that, the keys are not the right keys. And so what? I'm in a room with you guys because I'm in a room with you guys. I'm sorry. I'm so old that I need to have the songs played in a manner that the songs and the performances that you had.
Yeah.
And Twisted Sister, our whole thing was to be perfect every night. Never deviate, ever. There's no difference between Twisted Sister when we retired in 2016 versus when you saw us in 2006. Malcolm knows the story because he's written about it many times. How does a band maintain that excellence? Why does a band maintain excellence like that? Because that's what we believe professionals do. All my ranting about the Stones, all the jokes I say about them is me hurting for them. Now, it doesn't hurt them because they make their money and they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But look, Robert Plant, I love him. Do you know why? Because Robert says,
I know why, because he knows his ability and he changed.
Yes, he goes, I can't do it the way you need me to do it to make it justifiable for you to see me. Yeah. This is Robert Plant. And I'm going, good on you.
Sure.
Good on you.
I'm totally with you on that, for sure, 100%. So you mentioned that you are playing with this band in a few weeks, this new band, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because you've retired, maybe, have you? Do you still pick up the guitar? Is it something that you'll noodle at home, or you're obviously, you're making a guest appearance, so you're going to show me some of your sexy guitars now. There we go. Is that a Les Paul?
This is one of my. Yeah, it's a Junior. It's a 1954 Les Paul Junior, and I've owned it for about 35 years, and it sits in my room. And every day I look at it, and every day it says, "Pick me up and play me." And every day I go, "Fuck you, I'm not playing you." And it goes, "Come on. Pick me up and play me. Even your wife says, pick me up and play me. Why don't you play me?" And I go, because I don't fucking feel like playing you. "Come on, pick me up and play me." So this is my 54. This was always there. And God knows I have to practice to play with Adam in the metal homes, because I'm playing one of our Christmas songs, "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus," is on our Christmas record.
Yeah. Twisted Christmas.
And I play the lead on it, which means I actually have to practice it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't got any calluses. So you don't have any calluses. So your fingers are going to be hurting. Do you not miss playing the guitar at all? Why do you think that you've kind of lost this passion for playing?
Well, the serious answer to that is that I've done it a lot. And so, I'm famous for saying I played 9,200 shows. I mean, that's a lot of shows.
Yeah.
And I don't need to sit in front of the mirror anymore and go, who am I this week? So it kind of, my passion's gone somewhere else. I love doing motivational speaking way more than playing.
Well, you're good at that. You're definitely good at the motivational speaking, and you've got your book and stuff like that. But even put the rock star aside, just sitting there and noodling or just playing, you don't get any enjoyment from that.
No, that's an extreme statement. I can enjoy it, but I don't look for opportunities to do it.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, I could find a million opportunities to do it. I could play with people all day long.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
But look, there's another very practical reason too. My hearing suffered a great deal.
Yeah.
My hearing suffered a great deal over the years, and I wear hearing aids, and it hurts to listen to music. Oh, I'm sorry. So it hurts. It hurts actually listening. So if I'm playing in my room at really low volume, really low, it's fun. But if I actually have to stand in front of a band, I need super hearing protectors because my ears hurt.
Okay.
And that's another reason why I didn't mind when the band retired, because my body took its, for all the years of jumping around with 6-inch heels and, off drum platforms and all that shit, my lower back my discs are damaged. My hearing is a bit damaged. And you just get older and you have a little less energy. That's just the way it is. It doesn't mean that I'm not like an OAP, but
No.
I'm not, I have nothing to prove anymore. When the band came back in 2001, we had something to prove. We left without cementing our status as one of the greatest live bands in the world. And we had more to prove. And we came back and proved it. Now that I've played these festivals and these shows and the numbers are ridiculous, and playing in front of 100,000 people doesn't mean anything anymore because you can just do it like in your sleep.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate that. No. It doesn't mean that when you're singing, we're not going to take it to 100,000 people in a foreign country and they're singing it with you. It's not amongst the greatest experiences in the world. So do not misunderstand. It is one of the greatest experiences in the world. Yeah. However, when you've done it over and over and over again, then you say to yourself, is this it? Or is there something else? Is this the chapter that ends it? I am not going to be like Lemmy and die on stage. Yeah. Okay, that wasn't me. I saw Lemmy just before he died. He came on stage with us a couple of months prior. It broke my heart to see him in that condition. Yeah. I know he had physical ailments. It actually broke my heart. And he came in the dressing room at the end, sat down, and I said, you and I are going to call a mutual friend of ours named Jill Massey, who worked for Doug Smith and looked after Twisted, looked after Motorhead. And she was very close to both of us. And he hadn't spoken to Jill in a long time. And I called Jill's house from our dressing room. And Jill was on the phone with me and Lemmy. And I could see a big smile on his face. Like he was so happy he reconnected with Jill. And I was so happy to be able to do that. And then when he died, about 2 weeks after he died, Mickey D, I saw Mickey. And I said, did you know? And he said, the last gig they played, he walked into the dressing room and Lemmy was sitting there and he thought Lemmy was dead. The towel on his head, like leaning back. And he said, Lemmy. And Lemmy woke up and he goes, you okay? And he said, I knew that was it. That's not going to be me. You know what I mean? That ain't going to be me. I mean, I'm just not that desirous of being called the champ. I don't really care. You know, where I live in New York City, in my neighborhood, nobody knows what the hell I do, nor would I ever want them to know what I do. Nor do I get up and go, I'm JJ French, and Twisted Sister. Fuck that. I am John, and I live in Manhattan, and nobody knows me. If I'm recognized, it freaks me out. It's a question you can ask yourself is, do you like fame? And the answer to that is, I thought I would have liked it, but I have learned to dislike it incredibly. Doesn't mean that if someone recognizes me, I am at all rude, because you can't be rude. Because these days, if you're an asshole, everybody knows in 5 seconds. So you take the picture, you sign the paper, give them a guitar pick if you got one, all happy. Thank you so much for your support. Love you and all that. But it's an encroachment on our privacy. Now, I've been exposed to too many people in too many countries for too many years, and enough already. And all the adulation, enough already. Enough. It fed me. But I don't need to be fed anymore. So it's a very individualistic faith. You know what? You ask a retired footballer who's famous, from Chelsea or Arsenal, whatever, right? Yeah. And you, if you interviewed 10 of them, this is the response you get. You go, so how many of you still go to games? A couple will raise their hand, and a couple will go, I never go to games. Well, you do watch it on TV. A couple will raise their hands. A couple will go, I never watch it on TV. And you go, well, you still play with your kid. A couple may raise their hands, and a couple go, I never played with my kid. Yeah. Everyone has a different response to that question. And I did not become aware of these many different facets of response until I was put in the position to have that response. Until one day someone said to me, do you miss it? And I'm like, in reality, no.
Oh, but that's lovely, though. That's great. That means you've done the right thing. It means that you're just at this next phase of it's a new chapter, isn't it? It's just you're doing something. It's not different because it's still in the same kind of world, but
you're doing
a challenge.
Right. You're performing.
Yeah.
When I do motivational speaking, I'm performing in front of people, which is true.
You are.
But as my daughter fondly said to me when I told her I was getting into this podcasting, and she said, Dad, if you get paid for talking, you're going to be the richest guy in the world. That's what my daughter, said to me. And she was making a joke, but she knows I enjoy doing that.
you've got the gift of the gab. You've got that kind of New York thing going on. You know how to say the right things, or sometimes the wrong things. I guess it gets you in trouble sometimes.
I don't know. I think we're politically astute enough to avoid the problems.
Yeah.
And I'm not that judgmental with people. I'm more interested in hearing, like you, like when I'm doing my podcast, I want to hear somebody else talk about their opinion. I'm not into inflicting mine on them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
I want to hear what they have to say. That's what my listeners want to hear. They already know my shtick. You can read my book and you heard it all.
Yeah.
I wrote a book so my wife wouldn't have to hear the stories anymore. She just was like, fuck. My wife, the happiest day happened when my book was published, because the first dinner party we were at afterward, someone started asking me the questions they always ask me at dinner parties. How'd you start the band? What's it like to be with you? My wife would go, excuse me, he has a book, get a copy. He'll sign it for you and email him any questions about.
Page 39. If you want to know about that particular one, yeah.
I don't need to hear it any longer, No. So, and so many guys I interview say the same shit to me. Like, guys write their books. I go, why'd you write the book? Well, my wife was sick of hearing the story.
I love it how she just goes, go check the book out. But it's funny that you mentioned, like, with all your stage costumes and stuff, and how it took its toll on your back. And Paul Stanley was telling me that as well when they were talking about retiring. He just said, we just can't do it anymore. We can't wear those costumes, which makes sense, of course. But is it true that you auditioned for Wicked Lester, which obviously anyone at home that doesn't know, that was what Kiss were called before they were Kiss?
Yeah, I mean, the story's in the book, and it's really...
Should I go and buy the book?
The story's in the book, so yeah, like my wife. It's on page 32. The answer to that question. Okay? So buy the fucking book. It's on Kindle. You can. There's an audio book in case you're such a lazy motherfucker that you don't even want to read the thing. You'll have a guy tell you the goddamn story, and it won't have to be fucking me, okay? But yeah, I auditioned.
You did?
Yeah. I mean, I auditioned. Like, so did a lot of other people. I never said anything other than what the reality was. I didn't go, hey, man, my chance of being in the biggest band in the world. No,
I just think it's interesting. I know it's probably in the book, but what was it like in the audition, though? What were they?
It was like auditioning for any other band. It was
Did they make you dress up? Because their costumes in those early days was more like...
There was no costumes. No. They looked like hippies. Everyone in the band had beards and mustaches. You have to understand.
Wicked Lester wore makeup in those early days.
No, they did not. No. Are you kidding? They looked like the band Looking Glass. They did Brandy, You're a Fine Girl. First thing Gene said to me was, when you come down to hang out, don't tell them you're going to audition for the band, and don't pay any attention to how they look, because we all look like Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Oh, right.
He goes, we're going to change the image. He didn't tell me exactly what.
Okay.
But he said was, we love English bands like Slade. Yeah. And we're going to change the image to something like that, which was not makeup. That was high heels, yes, but it wasn't makeup yet. So he didn't say that to me. He just said, we're going to change the image, make it heavier. Because if you listen to the Wicked Lester shit, this shit sounds like Jethro Tull. It doesn't sound like there's fucking piccolos and recorders and flutes and shit. It sounds like,
yeah.
It just sounds, like just not what Kiss was. And I went to audition, and probably 10 other guitar players did. Because they were running advertisements for guitar players all summer, 72. So I auditioned for them in June.
So did you know them from the whole New York scene then?
No. They were, we considered them OBs.
Oh, okay.
Outer boroughs.
I thought it was
or we'll call them B&Ts, which are bridge and tunnel, and OBs, which are outer boroughs. If you're, let me put you this way. In New York State, people call themselves New Yorkers, but people in New York City do not consider people from upstate New Yorkers, and then people from Manhattan don't consider people out of Manhattan to be New Yorker. Like, right or wrong, there's a very elitist mentality about the borough of Manhattan. So when you meet people from Queens or Brooklyn, they're from Queens and Brooklyn. Yeah, they're not from Manhattan. They're from the outer boroughs or from the bridge and tunnel crowd. Yeah. I don't remember ever saying it in a derogatory sense. No. But these guys were Queens guys. Yeah. They weren't New York City guys. So there was a difference, but didn't matter. Didn't matter. They had a record deal. I got an audition, and for a couple of weeks, and then it didn't work out. And then they probably auditioned 20 people. I don't know. I never asked them how many people they auditioned, but they didn't pick Ace until late September, early October.
Okay.
The ad was still running in the Village Voice. I answered the ad again, thinking it was a different band. And Gene answered, I think, and said, "No, we got a guy. His name is Paul Fraley. We just hired him." That's what he said. And then he went, "I'll let you know when we're rehearsed with him. You can come down and see us." And he did. About a month after that, he said, "You want to come down?" I went to the Loft. I was at the Loft. This is what I can say historically about Kiss. The day they auditioned, the day they played for their producer, Ron Johnson, who produced the Wicked Lester record, the day they debuted the Kissified versions of their songs, the afternoon that they played those songs for the first time to anybody outside of the band, I was there that day with Ron Johnson and a friend of mine named Tommy Jahelka, who was just a buddy of mine who hung out with me. We went down, and there they were, and the word Kiss was on a bed sheet, and they were wearing platform shoes, but just, rock star clothes. That was it. And they played most of the songs from the Wicked Lester stuff, but Kissified through Marshall amplifiers. So let me be clear with your listeners. Up until Jimi Hendrix, no American bands played Marshall amps. I don't know if you know that, but they all played Fenders.
Yeah.
All the English bands played Marshalls, Hiwatts, Orange, all the heavyweight shit. The American bands played mostly through Fenders. Some played through Voxes. But the British bands were ballsy, and the American bands are kind of thin with their Fenders, okay? Jimmy played Marshalls because, men were men. Mountain played Sun because they sounded like Marshalls are probably cheaper than Marshalls. They probably didn't have the money for Marshalls. Right. They played Sun 1000 S's and 2000 S's. And the Allman Brothers were the only Southern rock band to use Marshalls because they're a heavy band. The Allman Brothers are uber heavy. They're not like the Grateful Dead with this Fendery bullshit, mealy sounding bullshit. They were thick Marshall Les Paul players. Yeah. They played Marshalls. But other than that, it was Fenders. So to have Kiss on stage, to have Kiss with their Marshalls was a statement to me.
Right. Okay. So that's why they were loud. Yeah.
That statement was, we're not fucking around.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Dolls were playing, at the Mercer Arts Center. I don't know what the fuck they were playing through, but it doesn't matter because they're so fucking bad. They could be, I wouldn't matter what they were playing through. They were just fucking horrible.
Did you see them live then?
Many, many, many times. More times you could possibly imagine. Every time
you didn't like
every time I saw them, I kept praying it would get better so I wouldn't waste my time seeing them again. And I saw them about 10 times, and only once were they really good. They were really good once.
Right.
They were really good one time. And the irony of that one time was that the show was produced by Andy Horn, who directed our video.
Right.
He produced that show at the Fillmore. The Fillmore reopened. And the Dolls played with Teenage Lust and Eric and the Magic Tramps. And the Dolls were actually good that day. Right. But I've already said a million times the Dolls suck. And they did. I mean, there's no excuse for it.
It was an attitude, wasn't it?
It was an attitude. They look great. But you have to understand, too, Johnny was a junkie in Central Park like all these other junkies I knew. There was nothing special about it. He was probably can I say this?
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Johnny Thunders, please excuse what I'm about to say. Probably the worst guitar player of the 50 that used to hang out in Central Park. But did he have the most heart? Did he have the most desire?
Yeah.
Was he well-meaning? Was he earnest? The answer to that was yeah.
Okay.
Okay? He was very earnest and very well-meaning, and he forced himself into a rock stardom mode because of his sheer desire and will. It had nothing to do with his playing. If the Dolls looked like any other hippie band, they would have been laughed out of the arena. But they looked fucking awesome. And Twisted Sister owes its life to the Dolls. Okay? Twisted owes my desire to get a band together because I wanted to be a better version of the Dolls. So when people say to me, what was the influence of Twisted Sister? I say 4 things. It was Bowie, Lou Reed, Mott the Hoople, and the New York Dolls.
Yeah.
Bowie for his excellence in songwriting. Lou Reed because of his iconic songwriting. Mott because Mott was the template of a better version of the Rolling Stones to us at that point. and the Dolls because of their attitude.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why Twisted was, if you were to ask the guys in the band back in 1973, they'd probably cite the exact thing that I just said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I give them their due, 100%.
Yeah.
But no, were they good? No, they weren't. But let's go back to Kiss. Kiss was great in the loft. Kiss knew exactly what they were doing. I walked out and went,